Colby Covington's title challenge against Kamaru Usman marks the second of a trio of welterweight fights headlining consecutive UFC pay-per-views. And although the undisputed welterweight title hangs in the balance, the fight exudes a middle child syndrome fitting of its position. Last month saw Jorge Masvidal stop Nate Diaz for a bespoke title fashioned from their shared philosophy, and January brings Conor McGregor back to the octagon to face the promotion's resident cowboy, Donald Cerrone. And if MMA was a meritocratic sport, those two bouts would pale in comparison to the fight for all the marbles, Usman versus Covington. But it doesn't follow those rules, and accolades don't necessarily dictate fanfare. And that was the reality which forced the polarising change to Covington's persona a little over 2 years ago. Encouraged or perhaps coerced by the UFC's business practices, he shifted with the demands of the market and transformed from a previously amicable grinder to a firebrand with no filter. And while this new pro-wrestling inspired gimmick maybe saved his UFC career and perhaps played a crucial role in earning him a crack at a world title, its overall efficacy is still under question. And it might have even put him in the precarious situation where a single loss, even one to the champion, could be detrimental. However, if he wins, then his decision to yield to the UFC's pressure and burn all his bridges could shine bright. Either way, despite the fight lacking the box office chops of the two blockbusters it's sandwiched between, it's unparalleled in the way it holds up a mirror to the UFC's way of doing business. And for me, that's where the real story is found here, within the fight's fascinating subtext. Legendary British sports promoter Barry Hearn often equates boxing to a soap opera with gloves. And while that's a tough pill to swallow for hardcore fans, there's unequivocally a healthy dose of truth to it. But it's always been this way. Like in a soap opera or a movie, story and characters are pivotal in attracting casual viewers. Any sport that seeks commercial success, so virtually all of them, must accept that this is a part of playing the game, but combat sports in particular live by that concept more than traditional ones. And in 2017 in the UFC, that was on full unabashed show. In June, Colby extended his promotional win streak by 4 by dominating Don Young Kim to earn a unanimous decision victory. However, Dan Lambert, American Top Team's owner, said that after the fight, matchmaker Sean Shelby told him that the UFC would not be re-signing his fighter, regardless of the outcome of his next bout. A story Colby confirmed later.
I knew I needed to make a change. I could tell that, I was already on my 3rd UFC contract, and they weren't ever upping my contract. Like, they were just saying, oh, you're just going to go up, to this contract. There's no negotiation period. You're just going to take what we give you because we don't like you. You're not a character. None of the fans care about your fighting style. No one cares about your personality. So I knew I had to make a change. I had to do something that was going to get the fans involved, make it a circus, because this is the circus business, So I knew I had to make a change, and I had to do something drastic that was going to get the fans and everybody hyped up, and that's what I did. Whether you hate me or love me, you're going to tune in to watch me.
And while accepting the word of an admitted con artist in Colby is undeniably foolish, it wouldn't surprise me if there was at least some truth to it. Firstly, it was initially revealed by Lambert, not Colby, and secondly, the UFC have priors with unfair dismissals, although you can argue the semantics of each example, like John Fitch and Jake Shields. Before the Kim fight, Covington was already trialling the gimmick he'd soon become known for, albeit with the volume turned down. But with his contract near completion, it'd be unsurprising if there was a suggestion that the UFC wasn't going to re-sign him, even back then. Anyway, whether you believe it or not, in the piece where Lambert admitted that Colby's job was on red alert, ESPN's Mike Rothstein wrote that it was the seminal moment for his new character. But if you dig deeper, you'll find that it was a clear reflection of the UFC's business practices and priorities then and even now. And you only need to rewind 12 days before Colby's fight with Kim, and it happened at flyweight. Historically, from a monetary perspective, that division was a tough egg to crack, but it had tremendous pedigree. Demetrius Johnson was the reigning champion. Moreover, he was the consensus pound for pound king and a prime candidate for the greatest of all time honours. So when his pay-per-view numbers were counted, his gate was calculated and they failed to meet commercial expectations, as they often did. He always had his greatness to fall back on. Well, that only flies for so long. He released a statement accusing the UFC of bullying tactics to coerce him into signing unfavourable agreements by threatening to shut down the division he had ruled since its birth. Up to that point, he had defended the flyweight strap 10 times in a row and was just one successful defence away from claiming the promotion's record for consecutive title defences. But in business, history and lineage be damned, ultimately money talks. Remember, this came just 12 days before Covington versus Kim, so it served as the contemporary precedent, but none of it was really new. When it suited them, the UFC happily leaned away from sport and merit into the realm of soap opera fighting. Around the same time, they were back in the money fight between Conor McGregor and boxer Floyd Mayweather, and just a year before that they welcomed CM Punk into the octagon with open arms, and then welcomed him back 2 years later. And you might dismiss those as novelties, but when bookended with their treatment of a pound for pound elite, as well as a legitimate blue chip prospect, it reveals the promotion's foremost priorities: the almighty dollar. And this isn't some big revelation, they're a business at the end of the day, but it paints a frightening picture for those fighters who don't sell themselves to the organisation's liking. Greatness, frankly, isn't a shield from their wrath. And while Colby isn't the first fighter to accept this reality, he is, in my mind, the chief example of a character born through these practices. He certainly took some guidance from the likes of Chael Sonnen and Conor McGregor, but they're drastically different cases. For Sonnen, his hand wasn't forced. He simply didn't like the trajectory of his career and wanted to speed things up a little. And McGregor, well, McGregor will be talking shit whether it affected his bottom line or not. But like a diamond, Colby's persona was created under immense pressure. The pressure that his livelihood might be at risk, be it from being cut by the promotion or undervalued based on their taste. And what emerged was a superficial character who chased controversy. And to take the UFC's side for a moment, if MMA could be marketed solely on merit, that's what they'd serve us. For the most part, their decisions are entirely based on consumer appetite. So yeah, we don't get off scot-free either. But anyways, moving on. Despite reaching for the lowest common denominator of insults at every turn, the media ate it up, even when he implied it was all an act, a fact that was already evident. While researching in preparation for this video, I found numerous examples where he alluded to his gimmick being a masquerade, but not many where he outwardly admitted it, until this week. Now not only is he willing to break the fourth wall a la Deadpool, but he's forthcoming in doing so. And for those paying close attention, his explicit admission doesn't change much, but for others, kayfabe, for the lack of a better word, has been destroyed.
He now came out and said that, hey, oh, this is just an act, you know, I don't give a shit. Yeah, he came out, you know, he said it was just an act, you know, they were gonna cut me, so.
Now he's made sure that everybody knows what's going on. And at UFC 245, it'll all come to a head. The fight on its own merit is exceedingly compelling. Colby's skill is somewhat hidden by the shadow of his persona, but he is an excellent fighter, as is Usman. The outcome, however, as well as the fallout, will speak volumes, because it's difficult to see a clear road to redemption if it all ends in failure for Colby. But I have noticed that this fight week, maybe for the first time, a vocal portion of the audience is having fun with his act. And while it's tricky to gauge how much support that is, it at least appears to be larger than before. Maybe his admission helped in a strange way. Perhaps like his beloved Trump, some fans are embracing the fact that he's not behaving in a prototypical manner. And yeah, there's certainly a debate to be had about whether his verbal attacks are crossing the line of decency, but that's a whole nother video. Anyway, if Colby does beat Usman, which would be an achievement in its own right, it could put him in his own blockbuster by lining up a showdown with Jorge Masvidal. And by all accounts, they were close friends. But despite Colby's heel turn holding Masvidal's early support, that eventually fizzled out. And it was Colby's affinity to burn bridges and Masvidal's central policy to shut down trash talkers that made sure of that. Unlike his other bouts, this one would place his persona under the exact conditions where it could thrive and indeed work, even for the hardcores who want to turn off the soap opera. But ultimately, if all that happens, what are we left with? A talented and successful fighter who felt it was imperative to devise a character in his bid to survive and then hopefully flourish in the UFC, and then in the end be vindicated. And whether you like Colby's shtick or not, I'm not so sure that's the sport we want. Thanks for watching, and if you got to this point you must have liked it, so give it one by clicking the thumbs up below and subscribe if you haven't already, that'd be excellent. And if you want to see more videos like this or have a suggestion for the next one, comment below and I'll see you next time. Cheers.